Let's continue our series to talk about how I became a pilot, or what I actually did there. So we covered in the last episode that I actually started off as a sailplane pilot from 14 to 18. I still think if you are into aviation, even if you're older, that's a very, very interesting part and a very easy way to get into flying. Plus, I think still it actually teaches you a lot of very valuable skills as a pilot, because if you don't have an engine, you need to take decisions on an even more serious basis, because you don't want to actually land your plane on a field or something else. However, that is normal for sailplanes, so it's nothing extraordinary. So from that perspective, you are far more used to things like an emergency landing, which would be the scenario for a single engine plane. So I did that up until 18, 19. Then I did my civil service in parallel, where I still continued to go to the airport and did the sailplane flying, but then I started comdivision, and especially in the first few years that took too much of my time, so I actually had to stop the other hobby from that perspective. That being said, now that I'm actually getting out of that area, and then comdivision evolved approximately around 10-15 years ago, I actually decided to get back into flying. I started single engine flying again. So I went to a local flying club and actually made my license there. I could have gone to a commercial pilot school, which would have been faster most likely, but in the end my personal attempt was to actually go with a local flying school, because it actually takes a bit longer. You go through the season similar like with the sailplane scenario, but it actually gives you more and more easier way, I think, to actually learn the different scenarios. I picked the flying club for different reasons, but we will cover that in a different video later on. So moving from sailplane to single engine, even if there were, I think, 10-15 years in between, you never stop understand how flying works. The difference was, now I had an engine, so I had to learn that. I had to learn a few other things. I also had to make a new radio license and a few other things. But overall, it was a very, very easy and straightforward transition. So even if you stop for several years, this is nothing which is very complex or hard to ever get over with. So that being said, that is how I transitioned to single engine planes, and I'm going to talk about my choice of a flying club back then, and how I then actually became a Cirrus pilot and stuff like that in one of the next episodes.